Let's try now. We're live.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of the podcast, How Do You Know That, with Robert Hollis. And we are so glad to have you with us today. Before we get things going, if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit the like and share buttons, as well as subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're listening
I'm hearing
to us
some reverb
elsewhere,
for some reason. Sorry.
Some what? That's me. My bad.
No worries.
Oh my gosh, I didn't change the settings.
No
There we
problem.
go.
That's how good Craig is. Craig, go ahead, Craig.
Okay. In fact, here we go. How about we're going to do a take 2. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to episode 10 of the podcast, How Do You Know That, with Robert Hollis, and we are so glad to have you with us today. Before we get things going, if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button as well as the like and share buttons. We appreciate that. And if you are listening to us elsewhere in the podcast universe, also please like and share this with friends and help us spread the word. Also, if you'd like to join our exclusive community, the Inner Circle, you can join us by going to roberthollis.com/join to register. And there will be lots of great exclusive content, and you'll be able to participate in our special breakthrough sessions to help you move to the next level. Today, episode 10 of How Do You Know That? And our topic is a really good one. If you heard it earlier on Robert's Going Live, love where we're going to go with this. It's called How to Bounce Back from Failure. Now, allow me to introduce our host of today's show. He is an entrepreneurial evangelist renowned for his incredible achievements. He is also known for inspiring countless of individuals around the globe with his unwavering determination and spirit. And he has also helped 67 people as of this date become millionaires. Known as a mentor, GPS to success, and a dear friend. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up to Mr. Robert Hollis.
Oh my God, Craig. I'm so happy to have you back. So happy to have you back. So the hostess with the mostest, Craig, I thank you for that incredible introduction. It always puts a big smile on my face, and I love and appreciate you so much. So great to have you back. And of course, Matthew, my son, behind the scenes, he's the geek from. It's always good to have him doing all the stuff in the back. So yeah, I all I want to do is really get into this, because a lot of people, I still to this day, after all these years I've spent helping people get more out of life. You know what I mean? Just share with them wisdom and knowledge that other people have given to me. This right here is the part that saddens me most. And that's me running into people that have had some kind of failure, or some kind of heartbreak, or some kind of trauma, where they grew up around individuals that, were constantly telling them that they weren't worth anything or not enough. And it's like, to see people give up on themselves, to see people not believe in themselves, so it's like, I would say that this is probably a crazy number, but, we always talk about the 3% versus the 97%, right? And so we got the 3%ers that are out, winning the game of life, and they're living their best life ever, and they're just doing awesome. And then we always talk about the 97% that are just, sometimes complacent and conformist, or, learned helplessness, victims, all of this stuff. And when you really think about, if a person felt and knew what I knew, then they would be in the 3% and the 97%. And I'm like, in my mind going, so are we talking about 97% of the people that have had some kind of letdown in their life and they haven't bounced back? If we even took that number and not said it was that big, 9 out of 10 people are not living their best life. And I would say it wasn't just from fear. I think it would be from them beating themselves up or allowing other people to beat them up. And let me take that back. A lot of people didn't have a choice of whether or not they could fight back or stop it from happening. To get dealt a failure, or get dealt a letdown or a heartbreak or that kind of stuff, and not being able to bounce back. And I know Craig and Matthew, you guys have met and know a lot of people. And when you meet them and you're doing your very, very best to tell them that, they really, if they wanted to, they could change the outcome by thinking different. It's like the things that I've had to learn where, when do you start not only forgiving everyone that wronged you, but you start thanking them for abusing you and giving you trauma, because it turns you into the person that you are today. I've watched my son Matthew go through some, pretty awful trauma stuff that made him make decisions, and then it forced him to do some stuff that he never ever thought about. But man, it turned out pretty freaking good. I'm pretty proud of him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of his bounce back. And, Craig being a dear friend for many, many years. We not only work together, but, all of a sudden I've watched Craig, bounce back. And, there was times where Craig allowed people, because he's got such a beautiful and big heart. Craig's usually the last employee to get fired because he's just willing to put up with so much shit for so little money.
Yes.
So what do you guys have to say about that?
Craig, do you want to go first?
Okay. And Robert, what you said to me, or what you say, I should say, is absolutely true. Is, where we are today is based on our successes and failures.
Right.
And I think that's the most important thing. And I don't know, when you were talking about it earlier today, when you brought up the subject about let's do this, it's like, okay, we were thinking of the one song by Taylor Swift. Now I know we can mention the name, we can't play it, but Shake It Off. And then the other one that really came to mind too was even more than that. Okay. Yes, you can shake it off, but shaking it off doesn't do anything, in my opinion. Although
Right.
it does get it off your back. The other song that hit me, which I posted in the Going Live, is by Chumbawamba. Funny name, but the song is so true. Tub thumping. And I get knocked down, but I get back up again. Ain't no one else going to keep me down. Boom. It's like, all right, fine. I got hit, set aside, sidetracked, but whatever that failure was, or whatever that sidetrack is, does it stop you from reaching your goal? Does it stop you from reaching your success? Does it stop you from doing what you want to do? If you don't let it, it just sets you back, gives you experience, lessons, as you've shared earlier, and then you pick those up and you move on. And, Matt, you were sharing with Matt. Yeah, he got knocked down a couple of times, but he got back up and he did it. And, if we hadn't done those kinds of things, where would we be today?
Right.
Yeah. No, I think the acceptance of that is like a large part of life, and has been huge for me personally in bouncing back from failures in my own life. Just going, this is part of the process. It's not something that's new to anybody. A lot of people have to deal with things and experience things. Leaning more into the gratitude has really helped me too, being grateful for the things that we do have. Craig was just sharing after his travels how great everything went, and then on the way back he had some travel difficulties because the airlines and everything, right? And but nowhere's in him telling that did I feel like he was still upset about it, or that he was in general, because he had such a great and incredible trip with his girlfriend, that it's like, why would I be upset about this small little thing and this large thing of fun, like of enjoyment, of excitement? And I think that that is life, right? Like every
Right.
now and then you have certain bits that you could hyper fixate on and hyper focus on, and it can make your life like a living hell, right? Because you're like living in it all the time. And to switch your mind from that to gratitude, to start thinking about all of the little things you're grateful for, can switch that paradigm for you huge, especially if you do it like when you wake up in the morning. You get your
Mm,
cup of coffee, you're waking up in the morning. There's a lot of people that are believers, and there's science even behind this, that the way that you start your morning is how your day is going to go. So if you wake up and you immediately get on social media and you're scrolling through negative articles or negative TikToks or things like that about all of these things, listen, like me personally, I do scroll when I get up too, but it's always like, what are the new developments with technology? What's
Right.
exciting? What's happening, you know? And I think that it's a very important thing to like start your day with that, especially if you're dealing with current failures, right? Even more so the case that you should be diving into the things you're grateful for if you've just experienced that. So,
and it's like what you keep sharing with us, Robert, the 6 phase meditation. Why are we supposed to do it in the morning or even at night? Some people do it at night. I've actually done it a couple of times at night when
Right.
it's like, I forgot about doing it today. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Okay, wait a minute. Back off. But you think about the things. What is one of the phases? The things that you are grateful for.
Right.
Name 5 to 10 things that you are grateful for that happened to you within the last 24 hours.
So why in the 6 phase meditation do you think that it's so important that the next phase is forgiving? And the next phase is, do you hold anything against anybody so you can let it go? One of my
mm,
favorite songs to this day is by the Eagles, and it's like, let get over it. Get
Right.
over it. If you guys haven't heard that song, it's hilarious, because he says, yeah, I don't know, I might have it missed around, but it's like your your daddy's too fat, your mommy's too skinny, get over it. And it's like the one I love too is sometimes when you're dealing with certain kinds of therapy, is where he says, I'd like to find your inner child and kick its little ass.
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm going like, and I'm going like, why is it that when you think about movies and you think about books and you think about music, when you really think about the arts and you think about plays, why do they all deal with the subject matter that we're talking about right now?
well, I think it's like one of the building blocks to life and to a story in general is you have to have that
Absolutely.
failure, like that 3 act structure where where Rocky gets knocked down or doesn't think that he can do it, right? And there's something that resonates with all of us because it's such a human experience to have that failure.
It might relate to everyone. That might
It
be
does, yeah.
what a story has in common with people.
Pretty much
Isn't
every
that the
one of
hero's
them.
journey?
Yeah, pretty much every one of them. Even if you took any of the archetypes, it's a fundamental building block of drama and of storytelling to have that down. Then you have to either you decide whether you lift the character back up or you keep them there and like teach the audience a lesson, I guess, on the subject matter that you're talking about. But it's it's definitely one of those things that resonates with pretty much everybody, right? So I
What's part of the failure is the story of the bounce back. You know what I
right.
mean? It's like everyone, um, like me, I've watched so many sports where, you see teams that not only win it in the last second, but no one ever talks about the other team that lost it in the last second.
No, the camera pans over to everyone jumping up and everyone that's not, they just well,
Yeah,
it's because there's
it's
something
like
in us too that wants to see victory. We like seeing others succeed in a way, even if we're rooting against them, right? There's
right.
something innately in us that's like very, I don't know, very competitive, but in like a very interesting way. I think that's why sports, like it's funny because I love movies and film, of course. So I'm watching the whole like Barbenheimer thing happen. Everyone's going and seeing Barbie and Oppenheimer. Have seen Barbie, amazing movie. Haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. I'm excited about that. But you see this, and there's this whole set of people that's looking at the box office numbers of these movies and the damage that it's doing to other movies, right? Like that aren't getting big box office numbers, and what that all means and what it's going to mean for Hollywood moving forward and everything like that and how they're going to make stuff. It's like no one has skin in the fight that's talking about it, right?
Right.
They're all talking about it and speculating because they're so interested in it and the competitiveness of it. What movies are going to do the best? Which ones aren't? Like I think it resonates that way with sports quite a bit. Me and Hannah were like talking about the Olympics, and it's crazy to think that they're coming up again in
Yeah.
France next year. But there's this time that happens where we all collectively as a human race watch the best of the best compete in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And there's something that's so interesting about that we all can collectively agree on that. And we love the failure. We
Yeah.
love watching someone fail and come back and win. It'll be everywhere. So
The biggest stories always happen in the Olympics about the person that everyone says is going to win the gold. There's like no one that can compete against this person until they can't. And it always happens every year in the Olympics, not in the same sport, but the person that has won all the world, maybe won back-to-back gold medals in 2 other Olympics, and they go into this one, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I don't know what's wrong, but I can't do it. And so
Simone
this
Biles in the last Olympics.
yeah, and so all of a sudden this opens the door for who? The person that has lost to this damn person for the last 8 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And we love to see that too. We do. We'll root for somebody and watch them win Olympic gold medals. And then 4 years, 8 years will go by and we'll watch it again. And then we're rooting against them for we want the underdog to win because there's something in us that likes that bounce back, right? Like we like seeing someone succeed. So
how many of us, and I'm guilty on this one, with Tom Brady. I mean, it was great when he won his first Super Bowl. It was okay when he won his second Super Bowl. And then it's like, oh God, Tom Brady's again in the Super Bowl. No, I will root for anybody in the Super Bowl except Tom Brady.
Right.
I've always had people, even though I'm not big in sports, but you get the people that just love their sport team and they can't help themselves. They'll say, well, what team do you play for? You love? Oh, I love the Minnesota Vikings and whoever beats the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No, I've heard that with the Patriots, it's
like whoever beat the Patriots, my favorite team.
Right. No, I had talking about that Tom Brady stuff. I have a friend who's born and raised in Georgia, and he played football in high school. He played football in college, and his favorite team, of course, was the Falcons, right? Mm-hmm. And so I remember when the Falcons were going against the Patriots, and that was when the blowout happened, right? Where the Falcons got the lead, a big lead, and then ended up losing it, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember the text between us. It was like crazy because he hates Tom Brady too, of course, even more now. But it's kind of crazy, like everybody kind of roots for the underdog, but then at the same time, it's like there's nothing kind of more crazy than someone consistently succeeding too. It's almost like a myth in a way. Like they become a myth because they're like, how is this person still doing this? How are they still winning all the time? So
I love the concept of one thing that I heard, Matt. I don't know if you and I talked about this, but in martial arts was the first time that I was exposed to this concept called yin and yang. And for every one thing, there's an equal and opposite reaction, kind of, light and darkness or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the first time that I really understood that is when I understood that there's people on this planet that participate in a joy or a fulfillment or a high of being in a zone and really, really accomplishing something that a majority of the world has never done. And you usually find out that those people also experience the lows of the low.
That's what I was gonna say too, is like everybody that I just said that they seem to keep winning, look at their background.
Yeah.
Maybe they may be winning over here, but people forget that Michael Jordan went over to baseball and sucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's still situations in these people's lives that are what seem to be consistent winners. They're just more accepting of failure, and they
Right.
know that bouncing back. Any successful person knows that. And I think that the fear so much in the failure is like robbing yourself. Melody was even saying this in chat. It's robbing yourself of that opportunity to grow and succeed, because the only people that fail are people that try.
Right.
So
And so there's when people talk about there's also this mental attitude where we just talk about where a person just is not willing to experience that dark of the dark. So they always say it's a very easy way not to feel that kind of bad situation, because you just don't try. So
mhm.
if I don't try, I don't get to experience the highs of the highs, but I'm also not experiencing the lows of the lows. And so that sort of blows people away when they hear, well, I've been with 19 different companies. You know what I mean? And people are like, what's wrong with you? Do you just really suck that bad? And it's like, no, based off my life, personal life, and also stuff that I've done, I've just bounced back more than a lot of people I know.
Yeah, well, I
And
think
you
it's
wouldn't be the
yeah.
person you are now if it wasn't for those, for lack of a better
Totally.
way of
Yeah,
saying,
correct.
failures.
I don't know if you think of this, people ask sort of time sometime, where's the confidence come from? Where's the where's the mindset of I just don't care if I fail or not. So people call that courage or being brave or having confidence. And it's like when you really don't give a shit what other people think about you, or you're not in the mindset of thinking about what other people are not thinking of you. If you caught that, that's right. I mean, it's like a lot of people, really think that people think about you, and I don't want to upset you, but they're not.
Right.
No, that
We
is
get
most of
that
the
into
time the
our head.
case.
That's our ego.
Yeah. It's so when you finally can put that aside, it's like I know I keep getting a bullseye because I just will not stop throwing darts. I just
Yeah.
will consistently just keep throwing darts. And I've seen people even in the industry that I'm in, they sometimes say the worst kind of success or happiness is a little. Because if you do get a high in your life and then that disappears, then that's a reason to just resign and say, I guess this just wasn't for me. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And all the people that you hear that are win are people that just keep trying. They just get up, bounce back, and say, who gives a shit?
Mm.
I'm gonna give it my all again. And if they don't believe in themselves or they look at their past failures and they're trying to bounce back, then you're doing it with not a belief or a vision that, hey, I think I can pull it off this time.
Mhm.
And so, my deal for everyone would be, why not just light it up and see how many times you get to bounce back. I think the people that bounce back the most made me think of that little short Pixar clip that was the
Boundin'. Yeah.
bounding.
Bounding, yeah. No, I remember you showing me that as a kid. You even showed that to a lot of people, and
Yeah,
it's funny to think all these years later, we're still talking about the same thing.
yeah,
But it still resonates with people, like I think having I don't know, when you are thinking about your failures and they pertain to what other people perceive you as, that can become very like toxic and bad for you, because anytime you're starting to think so much about what other people think of you, it's because of what I've talked about on these podcasts before. mirroring. It's what you want them to see you as, and that's why you care so much. And that's because you lack seeing yourself as that. So you want someone else to tell you what you are because you're unwilling to deal with the stuff that's inside and figure out who you are. So you're like, please tell me, but don't tell me anything bad. So you're giving them all of the control of whether or not you fail, right? And for some people, their version of failure is very minuscule. And for some people, it's a lot. Like they can
Mhm.
do a lot before they go, oh, I failed. And some people, they go, I didn't have a good night's sleep. Today's a failure. Like today's done. I didn't sleep good last night. I got 3 hours of sleep. I don't know how I'm going to do anything today. And so I think it's good to remember when you're in situations where you're believing that you're a failure based off of what other people have accomplished or based off of what they are saying you haven't. That's because you haven't taken the time to figure out who you are and trust that you know what you're doing. Because if you fail yourself, that's one thing, but you're not really failing anyone else in the normal sense because the only way that can happen is if you give them the power for that to happen,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
you have to
Oh,
basically believe that.
Why are you
I absolutely
letting others rent space in your head?
It's true.
true.
Because I mean, and it builds and builds and builds
Yeah,
on itself, and that's the worst part. And I know that for me, there have been times where it's happened, and what I do sometimes is, and I know I brought it up too. It's like step back, stop what you're doing, recognize it, and then think of all the positives that have come to bring you where you are. And was this a lesson that you needed to learn? And
I always think that. Yeah. By the way, I don't know why I didn't pull up the video, but in the YouTube chat, I posted the link to Bounden for from Pixar, so you guys will see that. It's one of my favorite little clips because we're talking about bouncing back, and right in that movie, it just shows it. You got one person that's constantly got the mentality of bouncing back, bouncing back, bouncing back, and the other one that sort of gets its, you know, feelings hurt.
Mhm.
And it's
No,
like,
yeah.
and when, we're human beings, and a lot of people's never, in my opinion, still don't understand a lot of things that makes us so complex, so when we do get in that dark moments, or we beat ourselves up and allow other people's opinions and thoughts to beat ourselves up, it is super, super sad that we just have a tendency of not only, not putting ourselves around situations and surroundings that can make us bounce back, but we start to isolate ourselves. We start
Mm.
to beat ourselves up. And I've heard this from people that, that not only when they seem, maybe I'm not trying to say that they're in a dark or a depressed place, they're just not in a good, happy feeling place, right? So they're at this neutral place, and they just seem to constantly be talking about, you know, situations that are out of their control. And they're always
Oh, that's
talking
a
about,
huge one, Dad.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
situations that are out of your control.
yeah, they're constantly talking about, this injustice and this unfairness that's happening in the world. And so, and as I'm saying this, I know why I brought it up, because it was a thought that I had when we first started, was this whole concept of comparing ourselves, our journey, with other people's journey. And
Mm.
so I believe that reality shows and things that are unjust that are happening in the world are so popular, and we get caught into it because we don't realize that mentally and spiritually we're basically going, my life is not as fucking bad as those people.
That is a part of it. People, yeah, no, I mean, the intake of like reality television becoming popular, you nailed it. I think that's one of the two. It's like either I want to feel better about my own life, so I'm going to watch someone who's really going through some rough shit and that'll make me feel better,
Right.
or I want to see someone that's living the life that I'm not living and I want to watch that, right? I want to see someone go off and do something that I wish I was doing. And I think it's interesting because as like there's the whole like Writers Guild strike and now SAG
Yeah.
striking, of course, the response to that back in the day was the invention of reality television.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people know that, but by the writers striking, all of the studios
How
went,
can we
how
create
are we? No
content?
one's writing anymore. So
How can
let's
we
just make
create
content.
content where people don't have to write?
Right, exactly. So we just turn the
And
cameras on and we face it at crazy people.
we also gotta hire actors and actresses that are not actresses and actors.
Yeah, the non-union
That's funny.
actors or just the general people who say, "Yeah, I want to be a star." And, people watching other people fall all over themselves, or is this reality? And in many cases, in a sense, the producers and the production companies, they got something right, because look what happened with the explosion of the reality shows. Survivor being, I think, the top one, and the Great Race, and then all of the
American
other
Idol.
offshoots. Yeah, American Idol, exactly.
Isn't it like Survivor season 78 or something?
They stopped counting seasons. It's just like the year now. Survivor
Yeah.
2023.
And sometimes I think it's like Survivor
think Big Brother
2023 and a
starts
half.
tonight. I think Big Brother starts tonight.
Yeah.
No, but Melody said, I believe that's why romance stories have become so popular too. There's a massive lack, if you guys have noticed, in stories that are at least movies. Like television's exploded because we stay in our homes now. But like going to the theater and seeing Barbie, it was like everybody was so ecstatic to be there at the theaters. And I haven't experienced that in like so long, that people are like actually excited to see a movie that was like a multi-layered thing. It said a lot about a lot of things. But yeah, there's like a massive lack in certain pieces of entertainment. And so reality
Mhm.
TV has fulfilled those spots, right? So it's like,
Right.
oh, there used to be all these romance movies that would come out. And how many of them would be good? Quite a bit. Like a few of them, whether they were romantic comedies or dramas or whatever. And now we're in a situation where you ask somebody, like, what's the last romance thing that you've experienced? And normally it's a reality TV show about romance or people falling in love. Like a lot of those are watched nowadays, right? So
Yeah.
like Netflix has a bunch. There's The Bachelor, of course, which I watch. Me and Hannah watch The Bachelor. So
Arthur Wainio's pointing out there are now 3 different below deck shows.
one of the best reality shows. Speaking of,
Yeah. But it's like, okay, so where's the creativity? And that's the thing. Okay, if I'm going to go ahead and throw out the entertainment industry here for a moment, what happened to the creativity part of everything? Because now they're using reality television as being the thing that sucks people in. And what are we seeing? And please, nothing against, the Marvel movies, the big action blow me ups, because I'm guilty. I love those movies. Fast and Furious, Marvel, the sci-fi fantasy movies, but there aren't many more creativity. There's not much more creativity going on out there in the movies. I know that's a little off topic, but just to kind of,
No, I think that it fits though, because like when we're talking about how to bounce back from failure, everything that you just said, the Marvel movies and stuff, the studios have been taking big L's on those movies all summer and all year long. Those movies have been tanking.
Yes.
So to have 2 original films, Barbie's of course it's a biopic, and then Barbie is a property that existed beforehand, but not in films. It's both those films, at least seeing Barbie, it's very uniquely Greta Gerwig's like writing style, everything like that. Not to turn this into a film podcast, but she's been vocal about bouncing back from failures and having to deal with that studio system that Craig is talking about.
Right.
That to get that movie made, people had to take pay cuts. To get that movie made, they had to really like push for that, like to get that original vision out there. And I think that is bouncing back from failure. And talking even about, Craig is involved in SAG and stuff.
Mhm.
So talking about all of these actors now that will have to bounce back from this whole ordeal, right? Like what's the system going to be like after that?
Oh,
And
nobody knows. Yeah.
One of the things that I love about bounce back stories as well is because I always think about our subjects. I really try to put myself out there and stretch a little bit. And people in general don't believe that they're enough, or they don't believe that they're deserving, and they don't believe in their ability that they need to win. But I believe that every person that watches this video live or recorded, you're wanting the underdog to win, or you going into a situation or environment that's out of your control, and you want to fight for the right for somebody else. See, that's the champion that's within you.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd like to post on social media, and you'd like to share stuff that people share because there's people being wronged, right? So you want to stand up for somebody and help them bounce back, because that's within you. You just won't do it for yourself.
Or you won't give it a try.
Yeah, it's like I see this, video going around, just like Passion of the Christ, but the same people put together that movie that's for child trafficking right now, and it's
Oh,
like,
Price of Freedom, is that what it's called?
yeah, and so you
Sound
get
of
this,
Freedom. No, it's Sound of Freedom, right?
yeah, so you get, it's amazing when stuff like this happens, because then everyone can have the right to fight for the unfairness of people being wronged. See, and that's the fighting spirit inside of us that wants to bounce back, because we're willing for the fight for the rights of other people that are being treated unfairly. We
Mhm.
just won't do that for ourselves.
Well, I think that's funny you brought that movie up, because that movie actually has done really, really well, by people kind of bouncing back from the failure that it had at getting like any type of distribution deal whatsoever. Like, I
Well,
don't
I
know a
believe
lot
that,
about it, but I have heard,
yeah.
that
Well,
like,
Matt, I think that's because you brought this up to me. I'll take us really off track, but I'll bring us back really quick. But Matt always talks about these individuals that are extremely, extremely smart marketers, like Steve Jobs, that can all of a sudden come out and go, it's really honestly us against the world. It really is us
mhm.
against the world. And so I don't know if it's Mel Gibson or all the people that are around him, but they really have figured out with the price, the Passion of the Christ, and then this movie on trafficking, that all the bad people in the world are trying to stop this movie from getting out, and we need you to go and watch it and tell the world about it. Man, they are freaking masters at getting the people to go against the bad people of the world. So and like everyone's trying to stop this from happening. And I go, I just think it's good marketing. I think it's excellent marketing, and it's
It's
also
amazing marketing.
it's a great message as well. I mean, we want to fight for the rights of other people to bounce back.
Yeah,
Or,
no,
or at least have a chance. Yeah.
Yeah,
mhm. No, I haven't seen the movie myself, like, but I have definitely been somewhat following, like, I'm one of those people that I said earlier that's like, "Oh, what's the box office on this? How's this doing?" or whatever, because I wanna do stuff in the industry too, so it's kind of good to know what is and isn't working, but at the same time, it's like, getting everybody behind a message and pushing it home, I'm always gonna be for, I think in a way, though, it is amazing and intelligent marketing,
right.
because truth be told, you could just release it digitally and have people pay for it. But at the same time, would it have had an impact if they didn't say, oh, $200 million was made from people going to theaters to see it? Like, that's a bigger message, I guess, than especially in
Well,
this
yeah,
day and age when
because
people
they
aren't.
get
So,
the bounce back is, hey, we're against the big evil machine, and we out box office, Mission Impossible, or we out box office whoever. It's
yeah,
and people, again, the theme that we're talking about, bouncing back, is who doesn't want to be a part of a winning thing? Who doesn't want to be a part so everyone always says mentally in their mind that they're not competitive, We need to be focusing on creation instead of being competitiveness. But if all of us can get in a group dynamic that makes us feel like we're winning, you know what I mean?
I mean, there's a whole movement, political movement going on that's basically around that and only that. So
Exactly.
if you're not winning, then what are you doing? No.
Right.
But no, it's definitely the case. I think that we like so much to see people that win that if we attach ourselves to an idea and that idea wins, or the person that shares that idea wins, then we almost feel like we won. And
We
I
did.
think that camaraderie, that camaraderie is somewhat it's interesting, right? Because you can have situations where people feel that way, but it doesn't kind of like serve them in any way. And that's going back to the self and going back
Yeah.
to figuring out what you want to do with yourself and how to bounce back from your own personal failures. But there is something in us that definitely loves to see it like externally, right?
Well, what do you think? What do you think if you guys? I'm just throwing this out here, and thanks a lot for all the people that are chatting. Is
Yeah.
is one of the things is it's like I don't know what it is about human beings that make us want to. Well, I do know what it is. Because a lot of people don't want to admit this, and they sort of feel like confronted when you bring it up. But people will talk about their trauma or their failures and things that have happened into their past like it's a badge of honor. It's like they feel like they get they're if they got money for every time they told their failure story, and the negative things that have happened in their past, they would be they'd be multimillionaires because they actually feel like they got to tell you about all these little failures that happened in their life. And the reason that people do that, they don't want to hear this, is because we all humanly drive for some kind of attention. You know what I mean? It's we want people to pay attention to us. And so instead of sharing a vision that we're going after that would serve many, what is better is to tell my story about how bad that I was mistreated, or
Mhm.
that I went through this abuse, or I went through this awfulness in my life, because then people all goes, oh well, God, I feel so sorry for you. You know what I mean? And this is the way that they get attention, and they're basically locked themselves in that awful situation of not bouncing back because they feel like they're getting attention and rewarded for talking about their failure.
And at the same time, those people are, like you say, they're getting attention because there are other people who have experienced it. And
Thank
so
you,
that's
Melodies.
maybe that is what their bounce back is, because now they've, like you said, they've got the attention. So everybody, it builds and builds and builds.
Mm.
And what happens? They're still stuck in the same place, but they're the one that is driving that.
Yeah,
And so, in a
Well,
sense, they
yeah.
are leading that charge, even though what they're saying and doing is not getting them anywhere.
right.
It's getting them the
Yeah.
attention, yes. And that's, like you've said before, that's all they want is the attention.
Yeah.
Well,
Melody put, one of the 6 human needs is significance. I
Yes.
she pulled that right out of my head because
mm,
she's probably seen me do this a million times. But it's like, there used to be a lot more Dr. Philisms when Dr. Phil was, a little more popular. But that was what was pulling in my head. He would always say to people, you know, so why do you keep bringing up this part of your failure? Now you keep talking about, that you were abused in a relationship and now you're divorced. Why does this keep coming up?
Mhm.
And it's because of significance. I get rewarded by someone feeling sorry for me.
that's interesting because like when I think about this subject, right? And I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. But when I think about it, I think it still comes back to the same self part. It's not even like the significance like that they'll get from others, but that there's this I need to set a few things up beforehand so about me. So then not to say that it's an excuse, but like in some ways people do use it that way, which is unfortunate because that's like going to keep you in it longer. But it's like, okay, if you tell everybody every single bad thing that happened to you, you're basically prefacing them with like the prologue to why you are the way that you are instead of letting them discover that for themselves. And in a way, you're doing that because maybe you lack self-confidence in who you are as a person to stand without those things, that those things made you who you are, but they're not who
Mhm.
you are.
Right.
Right.
And
And I
why do
think that we get
people
lost in that.
walk away from people who keep bringing it up over and over and over and over again?
Yeah. No, it is. It's true. I think that people don't realize that that pushes others away. And I was editing a bunch of shorts for the Robert Hollis channel, and one of the ones that I uploaded was you, Dad, talking about this specific subject. It's like until you take the personal responsibility to move out of it, you're always going to kind of be stuck in that spot. And people don't realize that significance is something that you have to earn by yourself, inside yourself. You have to say, I am enough, I am significant, all of that stuff. I knew Craig was going to get the thing. I was ready for it.
Right there.
But
Although it may be backwards. I don't know.
No,
no, it
it's
looks
not.
great.
Okay, good.
But
Because on my
yeah,
screen it's showing backwards, but still.
it's really rough because like people do really seriously like keep themselves in that space of telling everybody those things. And I just think that it's like repeating that pattern of like, please accept all of these things about me. And it's like, dude, I don't even know who you are yet. Like
Yeah. And
I
and think about it. Because you're not willing to bounce back from your failures, you're immediately trying to introduce yourself to maybe a stranger or a new group of people about who here I am, the person that hasn't bounced back from these failures.
And what
right.
impression does that give those people that you're trying to get to know or to support you? Immediately you start talking about all the failures, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Do I really want to support this person? Do I really want to be with this person?
Well, it sure can't give you energy.
No.
I know that. It's like there's still people that I run into today that they'll reach out to me and say, I don't know if you would please help mentor me and show me what to do. And I want the best things for me and my family. And I'd say I'd love to. Let's get going. And then they send me a 15-minute message. Well, I think first I need to tell you a little bit about myself. And it's like, I'm like, damn, now it's turned into a therapy session instead of
Yeah.
me just point, guiding, directing you on how to change your life.
Yeah, no, and I think therapy definitely, when you say therapy session, that's definitely where you should be saying all those things. You should be sharing that stuff. But I think when we say it to other people who don't know anything about us, like one thing that's really interesting is when you hear about a celebrity or you hear about somebody that's famous, and then you learn that they've been through things or they suffer with things like mental illnesses or whatever, and you go, why? I've never heard them talk about it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, if you had asked them, maybe you deal with it too, or maybe they're at a banquet that's benefiting something that they deal with or someone they love deals with, and they're talking about these things, you finally realize, wow, I didn't know this person had gone through all this stuff.
Right.
Because they don't every single interview sit down and talk about all of those things.
Well, also
Right.
most of the time that we hear any interviews is through people that are usually promoting something that they just created. And so the goal of going through all these interviews and promoting this movie or whatever, this book or my song, is right now that person is living in the present. And they're not only living in the present, but they're talking about the future. They want you to come read their book. They want you to come to their concert. They want you to go to the box office and go see their movie. And so I know that people are so excited and probably maybe even exhausted from all the tour and stuff they got to go through the promotion. But this is not a good time to talk about how much my life sucked when I couldn't get a part. And I was living on a couch and I was working part-time jobs. See, it's like when you're focused on your future, it's like a lot of people. I love the artists out there. You guys probably know a few of them, But I always love it when they talk about somebody and their comeback tour, right? And then they talk to the artist and they go, I didn't fucking go anywhere. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Brendan Fraser just went through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, good one. And it's like, where the hell have you guys been? There hasn't been a day that I was turning down jobs or turning down scripts or I wasn't auditioning. I mean, I've been trying this whole damn time.
And I'm going to add Ki Hui Kwan from
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Because
Honestly, Ki Hui Kwan is a amazing example of what we're talking about, how to
Yeah.
bounce back from failure.
for those of you who don't know, he was short round in the second Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom. So he was the little kid, and he's been going for roles and roles and roles and roles, and nothing. But he still kept going. He still saw a vision where he could do this again. And here comes Everything Everywhere All at Once. And look what happens. I mean, he wins. Jamie Lee Curtis is another example of somebody who has been, bounced around. You could say that about Michelle Yeoh, but she comes from China, and I think she's won awards in China, but this is her first experience here. But the point being is, even though they had their accolades and then they fell down a little bit, what did they do? They kept going. They bounced back. Robert Downey Jr., another one who or Hugh Grant, another one who, he was on his way up. Huh?
That's true.
Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman, exactly. And if you can't take experiences, and I guess this is where, this is a great topic where these are famous people.
Yeah.
Very famous people who they experienced that little bit of success and then they fell back, and they didn't let that fall back completely derail their path to what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And actually I love what Sarah Lipscomb says here in the chat. My failures are not who I am. It was an experience. So all of these things, let's say for Ki Hui Kwan, that from Indiana Jones to today, what was that in order to get him to where he was today? Experience.
The other thing too is I love it when I find a new actor or new actress, and I know the perception is now you just call them all actors, but
except when they're nominated, then you're not allowed. Then it goes back. No, just kidding.
So, what I think is really phenomenal is when you see someone, you go, wow, this person's really, really good. And so what you do is you Google them and you find out that they've been in 28 things. You know what I mean? And it's like all of a sudden you just sit there and go, well, we didn't, sort of like a song. You know what I mean? I forget what artist I heard recently that one of their songs took off. And they said, now this person has, 5 albums that are all number one. And then they said, well, 3 of the 5 albums were stuff that she had before that were released before the one that hit. And now because people love her music, they're going back and listening to the old stuff. And now that's all rising to the top.
Did you guys, was it true? This is some movie trivia for you guys, but talking about the bounce back stuff, but I heard that until Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody was in Wayne's World, it wasn't really that big worldwide, like as far as the song goes. And it was when it was in Wayne's World did it explode. I don't know, Matt, why I heard that. I'm going to Google that. You guys talk. I'm going to look.
Yeah, look that up, because I know that the first time I heard that, it was like, really? And it took off because it was so different. And in fact, okay, I'm going to use Queen as an example, because even if you watch the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, you see all the highs and lows that Freddie Mercury went through and the band to get out their message. And the fact that they stuck with what it was that they wanted, in spite of what people said and the bounce backs they got. And then all of a sudden now they become a success. So yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me, Matt, if that is the situation.
That's what I'm seeing. No, it's like Wayne's World was released on the 14th of February, 92, featured a scene with Bohemian Rhapsody that catapulted the song and the band into the top of the charts. despite, it says it came out nearly 2 decades
Yeah.
before Bohemian Rhapsody did. And it initially did not find an audience, that song. People, even in the reviews here, said that it was weird and people didn't get it. It wasn't until they were all dancing in the car in Wayne's World that everybody went, oh, we should all be listening to this song. And now, how many events do you go to where they don't play Bohemian Rhapsody, especially for sports events? It's like
Well, we are the
the whole
champions
crowd will
also. Yeah.
sing along with the song. All of us know like the lyrics, and they're not very straightforward lyrics. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's a great example, or, any artist too, who, what is it? Struggles for so many years, regardless of,
Right.
what medium. I'm going to say that because there are poets, there are artists like, painters and sculptors. And, it's just, they believe in what they believe. They get the bounce back, they get their failures. How many times did Michelangelo knock the nose off of one of his sculptures, or Rodin, or I'm throwing things out there, but but he still kept going, and people still loved what he shared.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there may be that one or two, but the failures that led up to it, what is the big phrase that everybody says about, they were
The
an
Edison
overnight
quote?
success.
Oh,
Yeah.
It took them 20 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
well,
Eh,
it's interesting how we still perceive things that way, even though
Yeah.
we all know that that's not true. There's always this beating up of ourselves going, I need to be successful. I need to get this going. And then we're all aware that no one gets there immediately. But
Yeah.
yet we try to force it upon ourselves to be like great enough to do these things. And
Like we're
it's
talking about, we started out talking about Brady, in sports. And then when you find out that, there was that one commercial, I see it all the time. There was one with Stephen Curry too, where they showed like 5 or 8, what would consider to be the best sports people in the world as far as journalists. And they're all like, who in the hell would want this freak? You know what I mean? He's not fast. He's overweight. He's not a big athletic person. It's like so Tom Brady, I don't remember how many rounds it is of
oh,
people.
it was like 20 something. I remember looking
Yeah,
He
at it
was
not too long
selected
ago.
199th
Yeah.
overall by the Patriots in the 6th round of the 2000 NFL draft. The minute you start talking about it, it's like, okay, got to look that one up.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so-
here's a guy. Yeah.
And
Right.
we all hear about, the stories of people that have bounced back. And I love the title of this. How do you bounce back?
Well, I was going to say too, maybe we should finish it out because we just hit an hour on how you have bounced back from something. And
Yeah.
we can go through.
Well, I you know what? It's funny. We're on the same track. We're on the same track. What I know is help me bounce back is you want to take whatever happened to your past and you want it to be a part of you, but it's now that whole thing, and people have a difficulty rephrasing this. But instead of saying, I have to do this, I have to do this, or this happened to me, you start changing that thought and feeling in your body, and you're saying, this happened for me. See, when all of a sudden you can take personal responsibility and you're going, listen, this happened for me. I get to do this stuff. I don't have to do this stuff. I get to do this stuff. So where my bounce back constantly comes from is because I'm consistently looking for other bounce back stories. So what inspires me is like I say that about inspiration. I say that about motivation. What makes me who I am is I look for the qualities that I love in others. So to bounce back, if a person really spent a lot of time constantly focusing on success stories, regardless if they're about books or business or sports or singing or acting. If you're constantly looking at people that went through what might be in your mind impossible odds, it's like your mind wraps around it. You go, whether you like her or not. I remember the story. It's like, okay, so I can't imagine being taken away from my mother and father, but then being raised by people that raped me, and I got pregnant, and then I lost a child. You know, and then because of that, you don't feel worthy or enough or deserving, so you're pretty much overweight. So then everybody pretty much says that you'll never be good in front of a group of people. And now we're talking about a billionaires named Oprah. And so when you go, what the hell? Because every one of us can mentally go to a place that we've heard about another person's story that we mentally might feel we're strong, but we don't know if we could make it through that kind of trauma. We don't know if, like me personally, me thinking about losing a child. It's like I said that today. If you want to think of the worst of the worst things, it's like I can't imagine. I just don't want to imagine. I don't want to be there. And then you hear of people. So that's where I believe not only therapy, but also support groups. You hear people right away, they want to isolate themselves and try to figure out how to get out of the situation of the darkness and the depression and them constantly beating up with themselves. That you get in a support group of a bunch of people that it happened to too. And then we got the internet. So if you wanted to find out, it's like how many people have recovered and bounced back from, losing a child, and what are some of people making it through divorce, or how many people have rebounded from losing their job. And then you find out that, some people in the world treat bankruptcy exactly the way it was intended to be done. Believe it or not, the reason that you only can file bankruptcy once every 7 years is because there's still people that form this country that came from basically a Christian belief that one of the scriptures say that, you should forgive your debtors every 7 years. It wasn't addressed at a business. It was saying that people that give money to other people, that they're supposed to look at their books and find out people that have been indebted to them for 7 years and forgive them and forget it. No, we live in a world where you sell that debt to a debt collector, then you take that debt and write it off on your frickin' taxes. So it didn't cost you a frickin' dime. And then you sold it to a bill collector that goes out there and tries to collect it and try to ruin people's lives with it. You know what I mean? So when people file bankruptcy, that is a bounce back for them. They look at filing bankruptcy. Let's get everything to zero. Let's go back to zero. And damn it, I'm going to bounce back from this. And when you find out people like Walt Disney, I still don't know the exact number because it's a story and a myth, but, this guy went to state to state to state filing bankruptcy. Talk about how many bounce backs do you have to have? Og Mandino, man, if you guys hear his story, this dude is homeless. This freaking dude was homeless and was looking for a place to get out of the rain and ended up in a doorway of a cathedral. And they had practice that night with the choir. And the guy's like, man, so other people don't even look at the experience they're in. And then other people all of a sudden go, wait a minute, there's things that are happening around me that I don't think are happening by accident. I think there's some things that are happening around me to pull me out of this so that I can bounce back. I still haven't wrote the last chapter of my frickin' book.
Yeah.
I want to turn the page of these other chapters, turn the frickin' page. Let's write a new chapter and let's frickin' bounce back, man. Let's make your story the best story ever.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only thing that you can do here. Like, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people don't think about, and myself included in this, there's many times in my own life where I forget that this is like my experience and I think like it's everyone else's, right? And so you like
That was
get
good,
into
Matt.
your
That was
mind.
good.
Yeah,
I
you get into your mind and you're like,
almost
"Oh,
spit my
this,
water
that."
out. Sorry to interrupt you.
But it's true though, right? It's like we get so fixated on what's happening in the world, what's happening around us, and then we finally take it to like what's happening to us. But the reality is we seem to like take that outside stuff and think that it's happening to us, as in like they're affecting us in some negative way, as if we don't have control over our own minds. And I think it's one of the biggest aha moments in life, and you're going to have to repeat this to yourself because it won't work 100% of the time, but is reminding yourself that this experience is your own and you get to dictate what it is and what it isn't,
Right.
and that you choose those. Bouncing back from failures is your own decision. If Walt Disney wants to go state to get to where he is and do that, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that frown upon it, and there's a million billion kids' lives that have been changed because of it,
Yeah.
adults too. So it's like, I think there's these moments that happen where we really, really start to believe everybody else instead of believing in ourselves, and you start to gauge your own experiences off other people's experiences and bully yourself and go, I haven't done enough, I haven't experienced enough. And I like this old proverb. I think I forget exactly where it's from, but it's like the past is you utilize the past for wisdom and you utilize the future for excitement.
Wow.
That's the best way to like kind of gauge, and those are both personal, right? Like if you're beating yourself up for things that you've done in the past, it will serve you none, especially if you've already apologized to the people or the things that you've affected. So now you're
Right.
just beating yourself up for no reason. It's not going to benefit you, because instead of beating yourself up, you should be learning and becoming wiser from your own mistakes, your failures, so you can bounce
That's
back.
probably why people don't bounce back, Matt. They just get so much. They just get. It sounds sad, but they just get so much out of beating the shit out of themselves for mistakes they made in the past that they just want to constantly tell you about how many times they failed and how many times they
Yeah.
messed up.
Well, like as we're building artificial intelligence, we're learning a lot about ourselves, because in the ways that we teach it is the ways that we've learned. And to look at the human brain and to think that if you constantly keep it in that cycle and you never change it, the brain is just going to default to that cycle.
Yep.
And it's very hard to get out of that depressed state or that anxious state. And that's been my bounce back. I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. So there's been times in my life where that's gotten really bad and affected everything in my life, and then there's times that I've went to work and bounced back from it and had some of the best successes and the best mental health of my life. And I think it's always like that ability to know that you can do it, and that it all comes back to you doing it. Like no one's going to change your situation for you. No one's going to come over and like save you, so to speak.
Right.
They can try their best, but you have to do it on your own anyway. So I think keeping in mind that it's your experience, and if you want it to be better and it sucks and you hate it, that you're the only one that can make it better.
Right.
Whether
And
you
people,
think you can
yeah.
or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. So like give that power back to yourself. That's so true, Craig. Yeah. Don't yeah, go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. No, finish, please.
Well, I was just going to say don't keep showing up to beat the shit out of yourself,
Right.
If you have a problem, what's funny is my dad was saying that stuff earlier about your child self. That's one of the biggest things in therapy that has helped me, and everyone can benefit from. And that is, when you start beating yourself up, think of yourself as the child version of who you are. And in that situation, when you start showing up and going, I can't do this, I suck, I'm never going to be good enough. Instead of saying imagine you're saying that to your child self, because that's who you are at your core. And so when you're bullying yourself, imagine you're bullying your child self, and you'll stop. Instead of saying,
Immediately.
you won't do anything. You won't succeed. It's like,
Mhm.
Jesus, very quick, you're going to go, I'm not that kind of person. I wouldn't bully a child, even though this child doesn't exist. They do. It's just in you. It's that part that's incredibly vulnerable, but it's also the most creative part of who you are. So don't abuse it, acknowledge it, and like work with it. So,
If it's to
I
be,
know
it's
I
up to
talked
me.
about I
right.
talked about earlier, I don't remember what video it was, but what would you say to your future self? That was, the part of The Secret. The Secret, when Rhonda Byrne come out of there, she had a person on there that his name was Joe Vitale. And Joe Vitale had this whole concept where he would bring people in, and he first would say, I want you to think of the person that you'll be 3 years from now. Now, this person has an amazing self-confidence. They've won at a lot of things. They're really admired. They got great relationships. They got great health. And he would go through all of this stuff talking about who you were 3 years from now. So once he got you in sort of a therapy or hypnotic state of you being at the ultimate place, the wonderful becoming of what you think you were or will become, then he would wake you up and set you in front of a mirror and goes, that's the future self that you just created. Now ask that person what to do and what to stop doing. And it caused an opposite of effect in these people, because it
Mm.
was just like Matt saying, you're not going to beat up on the little child that you have inside of you. You're not going to beat it up. So you're looking at your future fulfilled, happy self, successful self, and the very first thing you say, what do I need to stop doing? And your future self says, stop fucking beating yourself up. You
Right.
got this. You got this. You can do this. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah. It's like,
Well, it's like when we finally hear that from someone we respect or a mentor of ours. When you tell people that, I see them light up and have that, because they have that inspiration from you, right? And they've learned a lot from you. They respect you. And so when you hear that, you go, wow, maybe I can do it. And I know from your own story, someone saying, I think you would be really good as a mechanic, or any of those types of things. It matters a lot, but I think we forget that, just like you're saying, we can step in front of the mirror and do that for ourselves. And it's actually stronger if you do.
yeah,
Like, it's really great to get that from others when we're not giving that to ourselves. But if you can learn and work, like we were talking about the brain being a machine, if you can train it to do that and work at it consistently and be patient with yourself when you're not always keeping it up, but that you are going to get back to it and try your best, your mental health will become so much better, because then
And
you're
that's
just
where
in that
giving
state.
and that's where giving yourself grace. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
so important, because if you don't give yourself grace, if you keep beating yourself up, you're just beating yourself down.
Oh, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, true.
It doesn't matter what you do, you're still beating yourself. It's just like, okay, fine. I this happened. Now, what can I do? And Matt, what you shared and Robert is perfect. Look at yourself in the you are not that bad. You are not that bad.
thank you,
So
Craig.
fine.
No,
Yeah. Well, you aren't really.
All right.
But I mean, you take the moment to realize that, how many times do we hear people that God has set you on this earth to become the best person that you can become?
right.
Okay. Take that to heart, and okay, fine.
Right.
The I still love that meme that's out there where people's view of success, it's a straight line from the low point A to the high point B. But is that the real way to success? No, it's all over the freaking place. and then you're going to hit the lake in the bottom of a pit, and then you're going to hit this big bump that throws your back end over head over heels, and then you just got to like, okay, fine, deal with it. It is a failure, but do you still have your head in the game, your mind on what you want? And that is what is so important, in my opinion. It's like, you got to keep that vision. You keep saying vision, is what drives us. And without vision, people perish. Well, without that vision that you have, and without keeping that hold of that vision of what you want, okay, yes, there's people that may get there a little faster. There's people that may interrupt your journey to that vision, but
Right.
keep going, because that's how you bounce back from failure. I mean, yes, it's an altruistic look at things, but you have to understand that if you don't give yourself the grace that you need to take each one of those steps to move forward and work it through, you're gonna drown in yourself. You're drowning yourself.
There's one thing that my mentor did one time, and I know that I've taught it before, so the mirror thing came up to me, but it's like, Bill used to say to us that, first of all, if any of you really, really have stood in front of a mirror, and really attempt to try to stare into your eyes, that is like so uncomfortable.
Very.
We like looking at our hair. We like looking at our face. We love looking at stuff in the mirror. We don't spend a lot of time in front of the mirror. And even women that use the mirror to put makeup on are not looking at themselves in their eyes. And so Bill said, I want you to just stand there and stare at yourself in the eyes. And then if you feel like you're messing up, fire yourself. Just listen. Yeah, you're bullshitting everyone. You're telling everyone how hard you're working. You are not. Yet you're not connecting with people. You're not practicing. You're not getting gooder. You're fired. You're fired. And frickin' fire yourself. And then walk out, come back in, look at yourself in your eyes and going, I'm going to give you one more. This is what I This is what I expect of you. This is what I know you're capable of. And that's another way to bounce back. So it's I just know that we learn how to bounce back by not being isolated.
Right.
Not being isolated. So when you hear of people, being an alcoholic, or maybe they're going through a tragedy or loss of a spouse or a child, you always hear these groups that you can get into, and no one wants to go into them. But as soon as you get into them, then you hear other people that are really good at beating themselves up.
Oh, yeah.
Because the tragedies that happen in their life, even as a child, you got to get that thought that you're the one that made it happen, that it was your fault that no one wants to be around you. It's your fault that people abuse you. It's your fault that people didn't want anything to do with you. It's because of how bad of a person you are. And a lot of people always ask, why do I do that stuff? It's because you're a child. None of us want to admit that sometimes there's that little child within inside of us, even though we're adults. And it's like when you start to realize that a majority of the stuff that happened in your life was just things that happened. They're not even right or wrong.
Yeah.
The world makes us put labels on stuff. This is wrong. This is wronger. This is good. This is gooder. And so, there's got to be a victim, because if there's a victim, then there's someone that needs to take responsibility for that being the victimizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to blame our whole entire life, and sometimes our whole situation, on factors that we don't have control of, that really were just things that were just happening. They just happened.
Right.
They just happened. So
And doesn't
now,
the science of getting rich say something along that lines? Is like
yep,
maybe it happened because it was to prevent you from doing something, not that it was right or wrong. The one guy in the story, he figured everything out. He had it all laid out, and it failed in the most unimaginative way.
right.
But he continued to work ahead and find and found something different and unique, and he was more successful from
Yeah.
that.
So
That's one of the stories in the science of getting rich.
yeah, if
Right.
because the bounce back really, really comes when we no longer need to have a hold on the past.
Yeah. No, there's this whole like
We're gonna let
there's
that shit go. It served its deal. It was a part of the journey. It was the part of the
right.
journey. But if I don't let go, that the thought that came to my head, I know that you guys probably have heard the story about a guy that was walking during the dark and he couldn't tell where he was, so he slipped off a ledge. And so right away he knew he was falling, so he panicked and arms out and he was able to grab onto a tree. And so now he's hanging in the dark. He can't see anything. And he knows if he lets go of the limb, he's going to die. And so he finally doesn't believe in God and he reaches out to God and God says, let go. I got you. And finally, when he can't hang on anymore, he lets go and he didn't realize that he was like 1 foot from the ground. It's like that. It's like that. The mind is so powerful that we can just make up this really awful stuff and situations in our mind that makes us not feel deserving, not worthy, not enough, that we're better than we think we are. And it's through the inspiration, living through stories of other people that have bounced back and had the second run of their lives, the third run of their lives. We always hear these people that, go through relationship, and another awful thing is always divorce. You know what I mean? And there's three groups of people that three kinds of people after divorce. One people, that's just a part of their lives. Another group of people that they feel like they're ruined for the rest of their life. I thought that way. I looked at myself as a huge failure because I just said the reason that I was who I was is because my parents got divorced when I was young. They beat each other up. So that is one way that I'm not going to fail. This is the way that I'm going to be better than my parents. Yeah, I messed up on that one because I got divorced from my first wife before I met Terry. So it's like, and how I hung on to that relationship when there wasn't one part of that relationship that was good other than the birth of my oldest son.
Yeah.
But we hang on to it because it's like, I don't want to be looked at as a failure. And now,
Mhm.
what is that? Is that part of my conversation, Craig, now for the rest of my life? It's like, hey, have you
Oh,
been in a long-term relationship? Yeah, I'm a divorcee. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, so this guy doesn't know how to deal with relationships, or this girl doesn't, so I know Craig can speak to a little bit of that bounce back.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I was exactly what you just shared, Robert, because I was a child of divorce
Yep.
when I was a young boy. And I swore I would never, ever, ever, ever go through that after seeing what my mom went through and what my dad. Now, my mom raised me, and I give her props up one side and down the other for raising me to be who I am today. But I hung on to a marriage that should have been gone after probably around, I'm going to say, the 5-year mark.
Yeah.
And that's maybe even earlier than that. But that's when I started realizing. And then finally, it was like the night before our 10th anniversary, I said, that's enough. And we separated. And then it's like you get over that. But now I look back on it as being, and it's kind of like what we started this show with. That was the experience. That's the experience that I needed. The world was trying to teach me something, to accept it and to move on. And that is what is so important. You can't carry that grudge. You just got to say, all right, fine. It happened. My mom carried the stigma for even longer than what I did, because when she got divorced, you didn't do that. A woman should never get divorced in the
Crazy.
60s. Yeah.
Crazy.
And she had to raise 3 kids on her own, and she struggled with that. But what happened? She raised 3 good kids. She experienced a lot of great things, and she finally found what you're saying, Robert, with Terry. She found the love of her life in her later years, and just an incredible man. Accepted her for who she is, accepted her kids for who they are, and because that was her life.
Yeah.
So she bounced back from that stigma in a big way. I like to feel that helped me to bounce back. And the fact that I'm also in a similar situation with my girlfriend.
Is she still married?
No, she's not married.
No, I'm kidding.
God, I hope not. But I mean, she's got kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, as it was with my mom, is what it is with her. Her kids are number one. I accept that. And I also accept the fact that I can still enjoy this. I can still bounce back from the divorce that I had and all of the not so great relationships with others that I had in between the divorce to this point now, and to enjoy a fantastic relationship that I'm currently in. And
not only is that amazing, Craig. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't interrupt you. Continue.
Yeah, no, but see, and it all comes from bouncing back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it and I think, where would I have been had I drowned myself in my sorrow for such a long period of time? No, this is not who Craig is, who Craig wants to be, who Craig will be. And I will say the same thing to Matt. I will say the same thing to Robert. I will say that to the same thing to every single person who is watching and listening to this podcast and video. So what? Pick yourself up and move on. You get knocked down, you get back up again, and it doesn't matter what happened. You got to live life as it is now and make it the best possible thing that you can.
I feel like that's a great place to end it on. That was great.
Me too.
Welcome back, Craig.
Welcome back, Craig.
I did miss you guys. I really did, and I missed every one of you.
We were. I was doing videos, and everybody was posting in there. Where's the links? Where's the links? No.
I tried my best, but I'm not as speedy. You got AI levels of speed, Craig.
Well, so what a great podcast. Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you, Matthew. You know, it's I know when we come from our hearts and try to not cover things that just come from our hearts, just be who we are, the imperfect people that we are. I don't know why, I know there's books now that are written that are even called your flawed self, how to love your flawed self. But I really believe, I was telling some people today, that I just feel like we're going into a part of the world and a time in the world. You know what I mean? I was talking to Dana Scranton. Dana Scranton's all jacked out of his mind that we're thinking about doing another mastermind on a book. He was like, please tell me, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready to jump in. But we're just talking about, the consciousness of the world, and all of us trying to fight our independent battles while we're beating the crap out of ourselves, instead of just listening to other people that are actually, in the same journey, struggling with the same crap, the same shit, of all of us trying to be perfect, and all of us being embarrassed about the failures that we made in our life, can you imagine if everyone could just be brutally honest and they didn't care what other people thought? And you could just be open and honest with all the little stupid shit we messed up on. So
Mhm.
we all could look at each other and go, wait a minute, you too? You too? You
Yeah.
have those stupid thoughts, you have those stupid ideas, you beat yourself up too, you hold yourself back too, and it's like, because that's what I believe is the biggest farce of this whole mystery, is that everyone sits around and thinks they're the worst human being on the fucking planet.
Yeah, no, and you're right. There's a good balance there. It's like finding, not regurgitating your own story consistently to every new person you meet, but then on the other hand, when you do find people that you can share that with, that value it and can even learn from the wisdom that you have, you gotta observe that and like mine that for the valuable wisdom that is there. And I think that, like making a community and being in a community, like you're saying, or even being part of the inner circle, not to be pitching, but be part of the inner circle, you will be part of that type of community, and we learn from each other. And I believe that's the fastest way we do, like I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I've tried to learn like straight on, like here's video training or whatever. But learning from somebody or a mentor or working with people is like the fastest way to learn,
Yeah.
because you really are using not just your intelligence, but your emotions too, to gauge how things should be. And I think that that's the most human experience you can have. So
Very good. Craig, why don't you close it out? I do want to say thank you very much to Rita Brooks. I think she became an Inner Circle member, and I just wanted to reach out and tell her we love you, and we'll see you tomorrow night at the Inner Circle. So, Craig,
right.
why don't you close us out?
All
Thank you
right.
guys so
Well,
much.
Thank you, Matt.
thank you. Yes, and thank each and every one of you for joining us, and for sharing your thoughts in the chat. This what helps the conversation. It really does, and it drives us to new thinking, different ways of thinking, to bring it up and just share it. And that's what's awesome. And you can always follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. You can also follow him on youtube.com/YouTube, on Discord at roberthollis.com/Discord, on Instagram at instagram.com/official Robert Hollis, and on TikTok at tiktok.com/at real Robert Hollis. Don't forget to like and share this video on YouTube and share it with others. It will help us grow our community and reach those with ears to hear. Robert's schedule is Sunday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, with going live every day. Just some thoughts and tidbits that Robert shares with all of us. Then there's Ask Me Anything on Saturday at 12 noon Pacific, which we answer, or we can't talk now. We answer questions that you have of a certified millionaire, meaning Robert Hollis. And then, of course, the How Do You Know That podcast at 1 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. And then, of course, you can be a part of our inner circle, which we kind of have brought up, by going to roberthollis.com/join, where tomorrow and every Thursday, starting at 3 p.m., we do a breakthrough session with all our members of the inner circle. It is exclusive to the inner circle. So please go to roberthollis.com/join and be part of our community more than you are right now by then being with us. We go into more things and more details and more depth. And then, of course, thank you and shout out to our executive producer and visionaire, Matthew Hollis. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you being our foundation, our rock for all of the things that we share here. And Robert, bless you. Thank you for being our guide, our GPS to success, our mentor. And ladies and gentlemen, for each and every one of you for joining us today. This is Craig Jackman. Please be good to yourself. And bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.